Are you looking to don a suit of armor, gather your weapons, explore dungeons, and slay dragons? If you are, this is the episode for you. Today, we speak with a local high-profile tech entrepreneur who is turning his attention to a mobile gaming studio located right here in our hometown. That studio has produced a game with millions of downloads and a solid growing revenue stream. All this coming up on Techopia Live. Hello, I'm Michael Curran from the Ottawa Business Journal. Welcome to Techopia Live. This is a regular podcast from OBJ that features executives from next generation technology companies. We want to shine a spotlight on the up and comers. We also want to keep you updated on the established players, all with the goal of keeping the tech sector informed and connected. In today's episode, we speak with a serial entrepreneur who's played a very high profile role in the tech scene, probably for the better part of 20 years. I'm not exactly sure of that number. And as I read his bio facts here, many of you, in fact, might guess his name. He co-founded You.i TV way back in 2008. He left the CEO role at You.i TV after U.S. media giant Warner Media bought the company for reported $100 million. Today, we catch up with him and learn about some of his new ventures. Please welcome our special guest. Here is Jason Flick.
Hey, Michael, glad to be here.
I am very happy to reconnect with you, Jason. It's been a while, I think, since we bumped into each other. Oh, no, that's not true. We saw each other last week at Invest Ottawa at the Mayor's Economic Summit. But it's great to see your face and great to know that you're doing exciting things in the local tech sector, Jason, still. So let's jump right in here. And maybe the first thing I'll ask you to do, Jason, is to bring people up to speed. So you were so well connected, you and your co-founder with You.i TV. You left after it was acquired. What happened next, Jason?
Yeah, it was a clean handoff. As we mentioned in the beforehand, 2 weeks that we really did that handoff, and then I was done, and I didn't have to work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. You know, the typical. So yeah, I took some time. I was hoping to travel the world. I don't have to explain why that dream that I had many years ago didn't come true yet. So I stuck around and really got invested in some businesses, rejoined the board of Invest Ottawa, did a lot of work just getting myself in order in 2021. And then finally now doing some travel, learned how to surf, got my scuba certification, you know, all these things that, you know, you just were on your bucket list, but you didn't have to do. And then now I think we're almost a few months away now from 2 years and kind of getting settled into kind of investing and being a CEO mentor. And I speak at some corporate events just to kind of share the scars and experience from UI, which, you know, it's always hard to measure, but in the end you do have to measure. And I think it was a great success for myself and all of our employees who were shareholders.
Well, we're happy it didn't take off simply to a surf beach and never to be seen again. And of course, we're going to focus on the future in this discussion, but I just want to dwell on the exit because there's, you know, so many entrepreneurs, potentially some of them watching this episode who have exited a company or dreaming of that exit. Was it everything, looking back at it, was it everything you imagined? I mean, I got your reference that the pandemic kind of put a kink in your plan to go travel the world and that. But looking back, maybe a couple years later, Jason, good, bad, ugly, any thoughts on what transpired back then?
Sure. I mean, we were trying to be the platform for every screen, right? And not care about the OS so that anybody could build an app and it would run on TVs and cars and phones and gaming consoles. So we only got maybe 10% of that done. So that was unfortunate. But, you know, it was acquired by a company that immediately opened up 80 recs and has deployed apps on hundreds of millions of devices now. Everybody, they kept every person and hired more. So I think in the end, it was very good. Would we have loved to have kept going further? Maybe. Each inflection point adds risk. And we brought in every type of capital you can imagine: private equity, VC, subordinate debt. And as you kind of assemble all that stuff, a clock starts ticking, and it did align, and it was good. I would have loved to have seen it to its conclusion. Some company will eventually do what we were aiming for, but yeah, it was good. Everybody did well. It brought a lot of wealth and connections and career progression for a lot of Ottawa employees.
All right, good. Well, thanks for looking back at that. But let's, as I promised, look forward. And the main topic of discussion, I think, here today is going to be a gaming studio. I think that's how you describe it, called Northern Forge Studio. You co-founded it. Tell us that story.
Yeah, so kind of embarrassing now, but I loved Pokemon Go, even as an adult, I guess, because it was out when I was an adult. So I played a fair bit with my kids and even a little bit without my kids. But, you know, eventually it got tired, and I'm like, Pokemon Go competitors, like, what else is out there? Right? I want something a bit richer, and found this game called Orna. And it was the de facto existing game left that was a competitor to Pokemon Go. And I started playing it, and I'm like, this feels like it might be like a one guy studio. And as always, I love to mentor and help entrepreneurs. I figured probably lives in Texas or Europe or who knows where, and started talking to him because he's very accessible. Just the whole way he built the game, embracing his community, was so cool. And so I'm chatting with him, and next thing you know, we find out we live blocks from each other. And I said, okay, we've got to do this together. He was thinking, what's next? Do I take the game seriously? Do I move on to something else? And he decided to take the game seriously. And since then added 6 people and really, really grown the game. But we said, we've got to do more than just that. And it wasn't even incorporated, right? Like, he just did it out of passion on the side. So we said, let's create a gaming studio. We worked on a vision and a mission for it, and put that IP in there, and now created a second game. I said 6 employees from all over the world. We hired our fans. It was awesome. It still is. I mean, it's awesome. At every meeting, it's great. You're sitting in there and you're brainstorming, solving problems for a game when every one of the employees is a super fan. It's cool.
That is a remarkable coincidence. Like, truly remarkable.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. In the World Wide Web, you know, the creator of this game called Orna. So I think we got it. So he had done this kind of as a little bit of hobby. You identified, connected. So let's talk about the game now. You referenced Pokemon Go, and there's a connection, if people are familiar with Pokemon Go, towards what people might know there and what you're doing. But the game's called Orna, the first game. Is that right?
Correct.
And tell us about Orna.
Yeah, so it's got kind of all the things that are in style right now. It's got retro graphics. It has GPS. You need to walk around, discover things around you in the world. You'll find monsters. You will find dungeons and arenas, but you have to move around. You have to solve missions. There's new pieces that you can activate, and then it sets you on a mission of puzzles you have to go solve. You're seeing right now the video. This is our brand new feature. Both games are live ops. We can talk about that in a minute, but we've added a whole new towers piece where you have these, you have to go through every level. You're seeing some of them now. These are inside the towers, and you have to solve them and unlock them and get more materials to build them. And in your hometown, you can build these towers and people can see them. And it adds a whole new piece because we have players that are 2 years in and hardcore, and this really builds more content for them. But as you'll see, it's a live ops game. So every month we have new content, new challenges for them to do.
Wow, that's really neat. And I did download it last night. And when I was going out for walking my dog, Jason, and I fought a green slime monster just down the street from me. It's hard for people to believe, but there was a green slime monster, and I killed it, Jason.
Good.
I got him. Yeah, a little bit of defense, a little bit of offense. I'm sure I did it wrong, but
which class did you choose? It's going to tell people a lot about you. Which class?
Well, I can't. There was like a body type, so I went like I was a warrior, but then there was an A and B option. I went B, and I don't know why I went B.
That's all right. That's good. You know, and yeah, we're very generic about those things. I'm actually in the game, which is pretty cool. If you really scroll down, you can find a 16-bit version of Jason. It's pretty hilarious. But yes.
That is funny. That is funny. I do like the retro graphics. It reminded me of the late 80s or early 90s, whenever 16-bit was around. But it was a little bit of a throwback. So that's really cool. Tell us about the business model a bit, Jason. So it's free to play, free to download, free to play. I did very quick, by the way. I didn't have to like do all this registration, and I didn't have to necessarily give my email and that. So it's very quick to start playing. took a few minutes, but tell us about the business model.
Yeah. And so that is part of our core values, right? One of the things that we did before we co-founded it, just really what are our core values? And that's one of the big ones. So you're not going to see a lot of ads or no ads. You're not going to see a lot of pushing to purchase anything. I don't really recommend this business model to anybody because you have to build the entire game, get it really working well, get millions of downloads, and then hope that the top 5% actually pay and consume things. But we've gotten there, right? That's the hard part to do. So the business model is around skins, which in a 16-bit game, they're simplistic, but they're still really cool. We have a designer and even our community sometimes that build these the limitations of 16-bit actually makes it even more delightful, I think, when you see some of the skins you can purchase. You can also purchase some potions, but we will never be a pay-to-win game. Similar to Fortnite, you can spend, and some people spend thousands of dollars a month, and it doesn't help you in the game any. And so that's a key thing for us, is to make it not pay to win. And you're competing equally against everybody. If you're in a country where you can't afford to spend lots of money, or you're here where maybe you have more expendable, you're all equal. If you run into each other, you've had to grind and do it, get all that equipment by just, the work to do it.
Well, that sounds like a very ethical approach. And I don't think we've explicitly said it. This isn't a game that like hundreds or thousands. There's millions of downloads of this thing, right, Jason?
Millions of downloads, hundreds of thousands of active users a month. And
wow.
You will see people everywhere. I travel to some pretty wild places, and it's so cool to load it up and see, yep, these domains, because you can take over regions and you can build houses and you can build stores. And man, I see them everywhere. I have not found too many places, unless it's very remote, where someone hasn't loaded it up and taken over the area. So it's a lot of fun.
That's incredible. Wow, that is really neat. And tell us a little bit about the future. We're going to take a sponsor break here in a second, but the future of Northern Forge. So I heard it's hiring some employees. They have a second game. Like, where is this going, do you think?
Yeah, so we've built a second game now, built on the engine we have. But I think the real core IP, as I've been digging into this with my co-founder and looking at it, is how we embrace our audience. So we're translated into 17 different languages. That would be an enormous cost. You'd have to be a 50-person VC-backed company that either succeeds or goes out of business. Because we embrace our community, we have over 200,000 people on our Discord servers. And we have a whole hierarchy where you can volunteer, be part of the game, and your translations and ideas really matter. We have beta testers that are on there, and these are just our kind of most hardened, avid fans, and they love it. They work for us for free. It allows us to do this with 6 people right now, a couple of which are even part-time, because of all this extra help, and it makes for a better game, and they love it. And I think that's got to be a new way going forward. This idea of taking $100 million, building it all out. What was the Pokémon GO competitor there? The Wizards Unite. I mean, I saw both ends of that, because I was working with the media companies through UI as they were building the game, and the money they spent on that, and then it just failed, just zero.
Wow.
You can't do that. And most games aren't successful. You have to iterate, and if you're spending $100 million just to get the assets built like that did, then you have to tank it as soon as you know it's not going to generate it. So starting a game off, building it organically, and using your community, critical. So I think long-term, we've got our second game. I want to work with studios, do some mentorship, and eventually bring studios in that have that same value and belief. And there's no need to have a floor of lawyers and 100 developers. I think each game can be done with a really scrappy team of, 10, 20 maybe. And I think that's the long-term goal for us, is to just continue to build that up.
And just before we take that break, maybe just any observation on the gaming scene in Ottawa. So, we've been aware of it at OBJ for years and years. It's a little bit below the radar, but there are some pretty significant players right here in Ottawa that are doing, I don't know if I would say similar projects, but gaming projects. Yeah,
there's a lot of companies building games for other people. So that's great. So there's tons of gaming talent. But, to get a VC to fly here and get a game funded, very difficult. We're not known for building our own games. We have done a bunch for sure, but nothing. Most of it's like, Mattel does $1 million contract to get a company here to build a Mattel game. So you don't have the marketing issue. You don't have the drive. It's going to launch. Scrabble was created here. I could probably go on for an hour listing all the tier 1 games you know of and didn't know were built here. But really, if you want to bring value to Ottawa, we have to be creating the original content. It has to be built, designed, developed, marketed, and delivered out of Ottawa. And so I want to focus more on that. And there's a lot. There are so many little 2-3 person companies building really amazing games that I think they just need a little bit of a boost. And so what can we do as Northern Forge to help them be more successful? As they say, the tides rise all boats. And I want to just continue to see us all help each other. And there's no competition. There's the video game industry dwarfed the movie industry. I think it's 15 years ago. So there are billions and billions of dollars. There's no need to compete. We could have 100 highly successful games and we wouldn't even dent the gaming market. So how do we help each other?
Yeah. Thanks for making that distinction, by the way, and kind of what the community's been and what your vision is for the future. So we're going to put you on hold here, Jason. We want to keep on talking to you about, other things you might be doing in Ottawa. Before we do that, though, I want to pause for a second to recognize the sponsor of this episode, TD Bank. TD's relationship team is committed to your business. They take the time to understand your business and provide banking solutions that can help you achieve your business goals. A dedicated local team allows for deeper customer relationships and better service. They take the time to learn about your business and industry so they can react to changes in the marketplace and anticipate your business's evolving banking needs. Your relationship team can also connect you with other specialists at TD to help move your business forward. And once you're up and running, TD continues to actively manage your relationship, looking for ways to help grow your business. Learn more at tdcommercialbanking.com. All right, we're back speaking with Jason Flick. We're talked for several minutes about Northern Forge. And Jason, I want to figure out what else you're doing in the community. I know you're a man of great passion. I could sense that when talking about Northern Forge, but whatever other things are on your radar these days?
Yeah. So it's been interesting taking the last while and distilling it down. I've had some weeks where I kind of got back to like 7-8 meetings a day. It's okay, that's too much, so finding that balance, I'm still figuring that out. That might be a lifetime thing, but I think I've kind of broken down what I'm doing, at least from a business point of view, into investing. And I've invested in 4 companies now in the Ottawa and Toronto region. CEO mentorship, just to sit down, like having been at the top of a company and had to reinvent myself and deal with all those stresses. I actually really enjoyed sitting down with CEOs and helping them to get through some of that and use some of those scars and lessons I've learned and all the mentoring I've benefited from. And then a corporate speaker, I'll speak at some corporate events. It's not something really even to generate revenue, just to kind of spread all the lessons learned. I really feel what we built at You.i was pretty special, and it can be copied. And I think the more you do it, the more people love to work at your company. So those are kind of the areas I'm working in. But of course, join the Invest Ottawa board as well. I've joined 4 other boards, helping community. Invest Ottawa is just into its 5-year planning session. Again, I said this is a great time. I was off for a few years. Stayed on the innovation board. I've been on that, I think, 12 years running, I think, just helping out with the events and stuff. But being on the main board really helps to make sure that the entrepreneurial perspective is there, because that's a tough job they have, right? Handling all the different, they have customers that fund them, they have people that want to use them and their services, and they have space. So I think, to me, in Ottawa anyways, that's where I can make the biggest impact with a relatively small amount of time.
It's complicated, the mandate of Invest Ottawa. They just celebrated their 10th anniversary, so that was a pretty cool milestone to set. One of the things I've appreciated about you, Jason, there's many, and I'm not trying to butter you up, but you are very community minded, and you tend to get involved and have a sense of the broader local technology community. And honestly, that isn't the case for most CEOs. Many CEOs are so heads down, they're putting like 100%, and I don't fault them at all, 100% of their energy into their own company. So whenever I speak to you, Jason, I'm always keen to get your perspective, given your longevity and community commitment, to ask you, what is your general observation in how the local tech sector, and I know, you need to kind of zoom up on a question like that, but what is your general observation on what's happening in tech right now in Ottawa?
I mean, so tech is going through a whole thing in itself in general, right? Investors, money's being pulled out, which makes no sense to me. That VCs should be investing in the down times, as that's when the great companies are being built. But in Ottawa, I think it's been interesting to see. I'm seeing more and more collaboration, which is great. One of the reasons I joined Invest Ottawa 10 years ago, was one of the founding board members, was to get these universities, big business that's in Ottawa. There's lots of big businesses here, global businesses, and the startups all working together and getting more of that overlap. Our startups have great technology. Big businesses can't build great technology. They can't innovate. And the universities have incredible talent that they can bring. And so the colleges to these startups and big business. So getting them working closer together, which was really, I think, one of the secret sauces of Silicon Valley. Sure, funding, but I think we've made huge progress in funding. Obviously, funding's down now in every sector, but Ottawa's really done well to get the funding that it needs and to educate CEOs on how to raise capital. So I think that's the key thing. And just the collaboration. Like, I remember when I started my company, it was a tiny group of us. We'd meet in the St. Anthony soccer club. I didn't even know that place existed. We'd have a case of beer and chat. And now, wow, you know, the programs that are available, it's incredible. And that's really helped Ottawa. And now we've got lots of huge companies and lots more startups. I want to see them all working together closer, though.
Just quickly, we'll wrap up here in a minute, but one thing that makes you optimistic about the local tech sector, and maybe you've already said it, maybe it's the funding, and one thing that you think is a challenge. Any quick thoughts on what makes you optimistic? What do you think is a challenge?
So we're the technology behind most companies you know and love, and that's booming. We love bootstrapping. We don't like to take $100 million and turn it into $1 billion. We like to just be scrappy, figure it out, adapt, be customer focused. What we're going into now is perfect for the DNA of Ottawa. Challenge, I think, working closer with the post-secondaries and big business. And I want to comment on the CEOs. You're right. Most CEOs don't spend time locally. I can tell you firsthand, I do it to give back, but you know what? It's paid dividends. Going out and taking your time as a CEO, involving yourself in the community. We would get 5 to 10 times the number of resumes that other companies would. Our brand awareness, the great stuff the OBJ has done for us to raise our awareness. I've told you many times, when we get covered in the OBJ, my inbox fills up more than any. I've been on CNN, we've been on Variety. My inbox fills up with more stuff that helps the business when I get on some of the OBJ events than I do in those other ones. So, focus on it. Help the local companies.
Yeah. We certainly won't disagree with the local focus. I think there is a business case and ROI to getting involved locally, and fully appreciate, that people need to stay laser sharp on their global vision in that. Jason, before we wrap up, I want to get your sense of on this question. EY, the global accounting and consulting firm, is a major sponsor of Techopia, and their slogan is "Building a Better Working World." I kind of like it, to be honest. It's a nice vision. So I always like to ask our guests as we're wrapping up, how is Jason Flick building a better working world?
Yeah. One, investing with purpose, just be logical. A lot of people do investing and say, how do I double my money in 10 years? Like, use purpose, and purpose will actually drive, I think, what you want. But if I look at me personally, and I just did one of these a couple of weeks ago, I have a deck on all the lessons learned, a very unvarnished reality of the pros and cons of what it took to get UI where it was, and the areas that were really good and where we struggled. And I do those talks, and I think that really empowers the staff, gets communication happening, and I think really kind of boosts a lot of the key things that we focused on in culture in those companies, and makes it better place to work. So I want to make more companies better places to work by helping them with their culture. And my little piece is doing this talk that I'll do at corporate events, and it's great. Afterwards, I usually have like a half an hour of people lining up asking questions, and it's just great. And they open up more. So that's hopefully, I think, it's scalable and a big impact, and doesn't take much time off of.
Very neat. And people love stories, Jason, as you know, but they also love people that are authentic and people who are vulnerable to tell the real story. So it's not, the rock star tech CEO story. I think you're telling it, telling it like it is, and keeping it real.
It only looks like this when you zoom way back. In reality, it was like this,
Yeah.
And some years you're like, did we go up? Yeah. Okay. This was, yes. And that's how you learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, I want to thank you for being part of this, but maybe more than that, I want to thank you for staying involved in the local tech community, coming back to Invest Ottawa and making these investments. Northern Forge is a great example of that. Thanks for identifying this potential. Wish you best of luck in all these ventures.
Thank you, Michael. Pleasure.
Thanks, Jason. Take care. All right. Well, before we wrap up, let's take a look at some of the other great companies that champion Techopia. Techopia is brought to you by many great sponsors, such as EY, building a better working world. Number Crunch, offering virtual CFO services for SaaS companies. Pearly Robertson Hill and McDougall, a leader in business and technology sector law. TD Bank, specialized programs for technology companies. The University of Ottawa Faculty of Engineering, creating the next generation of technical talent. Techopia is not only a podcast, we post new articles daily at obj.ca/Techopia. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe and click the bell icon. Big thank you once again to Jason Flick, and exciting to watch what's happening at Northern Forge. I'll be fighting more green slime monsters on my street as I walk my dog tonight. You've got my commitment on that, Jason. Thank you for watching and listening. Hey, I wanted to give you a heads up on one quick thing. We're about to launch something, an annual magazine that puts Ottawa's technology sector into context. We've created the magazine in partnership with EY. We're having an event at Queen Street Fair on March 6th. That's a Monday night from about 6 to 8 o'clock, maybe a little bit longer. It's going to be a fun night. It's really a chance for the local tech sector and leaders and workers to reconnect. If you want to go, it's invite only, but send me an email at publisher@obj.ca, publisher@obj.ca. I'll add you to the list. That's it for this episode of Techopia Live. We hope we're keeping you connected and informed. Let's keep building Ottawa's technology utopia. We call that Techopia. See you soon. Bye-bye.